Hello again. So long rides, how important are they in ultra-endurance cycling, and how important are long back-to-back rides? Well, you might think they'd be extremely important. Well, that is true to some extent, but once you've reached a sort of minimum level of endurance, then they become increasingly less important, and the long rides then become some sort of maintenance level. So if you've watched previous of my videos, you'll know that I like to work on the minimum requirement to finish the event and then start to work on getting a bit faster. What you're training for first is to be able to ride for the required duration of your event. So if it's a Gran Fondo or a Sportive, you can make an estimate of how long you think it will take you once you've built your fitness and your speed as well. So like if it's several months in advance, you don't need to base it on your current riding speed. You can make a realistic estimate of how much faster you might get, and then train to ride for that duration. If you're training for a multi-day event, like an ultra-endurance bikepacking event, then it's good to ride to a duration schedule. So plan what your day might look like. So you might plan to ride for 16 hours a day. Obviously you won't be riding continuously for 16 hours because you have to stop to go to the toilet and buy stuff and eat and all these other things that you might not be able to do on the bike. But say 16 hours a day, you'd have your recovery, your 8 hours off or whatever, and then another 16 hours. So then you're training to ride for 16 hours or spend a day on the bike for 16 hours, which might include stopping and buying stuff and going to the toilet and whatever else. And once you can achieve something close to that, so you sort of know that you can ride for 16 hours, or if it's your Gran Fondo, you know you can ride for 8 hours or 6 hours or 10 hours or whatever it's going to take, then you need to just maintain that. So the long rides become less of a progression and more of a maintenance. And by maintenance, I mean you just have to maintain the ability to ride for that duration. So you might, every sort of 3 or 4 weeks, you might do a extra long ride, a super long ride. Obviously every week you'd be doing a fairly long ride because you need a fair amount of volume if you're doing endurance cycling events. And then on the other weeks you're focusing on building your speed because you've already got that sort of endurance side of things in place. And by doing a good volume you'll be improving your aerobic efficiency anyway. But if you don't do such long rides every weekend, then that gives you a little bit of energy to try and get faster, and as a consequence you'll be going a bit further, and that's obviously the objective. Or if you're doing a one-day event, you'll do the event a bit faster. So in answer to the question, yeah, long rides are important, but they become less important as you get fitter. So how do you build up that endurance so that you can ride for the duration that you require? Well, unless your longest ride's like 3 or 4 hours, then you don't want to be trying to increase that every week because you just sort of get too tired and you won't be able to do any other riding during the week. So pick one weekend, maybe every second weekend, as you build up to from 3 to 6 hours to 8 hours. And then once you sort of get into that sort of what we might call super long sort of days, which could be quite hard to fit into your life schedule, then just pick one weekend a month where you try to extend the duration. So you might do, your normal ride might be 4 to 6 hours, you might do 8 hours every other week, and then you might just try and push the boundaries a bit every 4th week or something like that. I mean, to do that it can be quite useful to just enter a long Audax or enter an event that's a bit shorter than your main event, but it gives you a fixed route, a bit of company and a bit of a structure to use to build up your endurance ride, or plan yourself a route that's quite interesting and challenging. And within that it's useful to have some sort of weekly structure, and I guess you'll know from previous videos that I quite like to work on Mondays and Fridays as easy days, building endurance at the weekends, perhaps with something a bit harder on a Saturday and then a bit longer on a Sunday. Or if you're going super long, you might want to do that on a Saturday, or whichever day is most convenient for you really. And then when you do your super long day at the weekend, you just make the week really easy before it and the week after really easy. And you'd continue to have that weekly structure and this 3 to 4 week block where you might have the easier days around your longer ride, even when you get into this maintenance period. But when you're into the maintenance period, then you might back off your long rides on the interim weekends so that you can work harder on your intensity. Like you might be, if you're training for an ultra endurance event, as you're building up your endurance, you might do long on Saturday and Sunday. But when you actually get into this maintenance period, when you know you can ride for a long time, you might do an interval session on a Saturday and then a long ride on a Sunday. but your long ride on the Sunday might only be 4 or 5 hours. So you've then got the energy to do something during the week, so you can fit in another interval session during the week. And that way you can build up your FTP and all your thresholds, and your average riding speed comes on because you're a little bit less tired because you're not doing as much volume. And in that way, you're getting faster and you're going to be performing better. So I'm not sure if I've explained that really well. In summary, yeah, long rides are important, but as you've reached the sort of minimum standard, then they become less important and you just go into some sort of maintenance phase. And then in that time, you're trying to build up your speed so that you can ride further in the given time, or if you're doing a one-day event, ride the distance that you want to ride in less time. So you're working on duration first so you can finish, because the most important thing is to be able to finish your event, and then once you know you can finish, then you start working on speed. Hope that makes sense, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.